Hey there, welcome to Board Game Hot Takes, the podcast where we give our immediate reactions to the hottest board games just minutes after playing them. My name's Tim.
And I'm Chris.
This is Adam.
And I'm Jen.
And we're going to depart from our normal format for this episode, and instead of a hot take review, we're going to cover our top 5 list of games that we want to play but haven't. And since this is our final episode before Christmas, we'll ask Santa if he can make it happen. Each of us are going to talk about 5 board games that we're excited to play, but for whatever reason, just haven't gotten to yet. We'll discuss why we want to play them and what stopped us from getting them to the table so far.
But before we kick off our Christmas lists and the things that we are hoping to play in the new year, remember that you can join into the conversation if you follow us on Twitter at BG_hot takes or on Facebook at Board Game Hot Takes to chat with us about the games we're playing. And please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us to help more people find the show.
All right, let's get this holiday party started. First of all, I'm just curious if any of you, did you have a hard time making this list? Chris, what did you think about this topic?
Well, it's a good topic, but it was a little bit tough because, of the bunch of us, I'm probably the one who's least up to date on, the hot new happenings in the board game world. So I had to do a little bit of digging. And actually, I found some interesting things just from looking at the things that are hot right now in the board game world and got some great ideas. So it actually helped.
All right. Sounds good. Jen, what about you? Any trouble making this list, or was it an easy one for you?
So 4 out of 5 of them completely just came right out without even having to think about it. But the 5th one was really hard. But I think all of mine really came from the experiences that we've kind of had together over the past 6 months or so. And so something in another game spurred this, or a conversation with one of you. We were looking online during recording another podcast. So it really, every single one of my ones that I am sad I didn't get to play and hoping to play in the future are definitely based on the experiences I've been having with y'all.
I'm really proud, Jen. The fact that you've really kind of gotten into this hobby just in the last few months, and you now have 4 on your wish list that you've been waiting to play already. That's awesome. I'm excited. I feel like we got our sinkers into you, or our hooks into you, our sinkers. We got our hooks into you tonight. And that's great. That's great. What about you, Adam? How is this list for you?
I am just finishing up my list right now. So it was a little tough. But I think I have a solid list. I'm looking forward to playing all these games that I eventually ended up with.
Awesome. Well, for me personally, this was a hard list for me. There's probably a dozen or so games that I really want to play that I haven't had a chance to yet. And so I had to kind of narrow it down. There were some that I've really, making the top 5 was not that bad, but I did have to cut some things. And in the last couple, I had to make a choice. So there's a number that I could have substituted out here, but there's a lot of games I want to play. And for listeners, I think this is a good thing to watch, because there's a good chance that if you're hearing games in this recording, in this episode, it's a good chance we're probably going to be playing them over the next year, because if we want to play them, that's how we pick our games. I'm looking forward to see what the rest of the crew here has to say. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So we're going to start with Chris. Let's hear your number 5. What is your number 5?
All right. My number 5 is Godspeed, which is designed by Clayton Hargrave and Adam Hill, with artists Jesse Riggle and Steve O'Torres, and published by Pandasaurus Games. This is one that it's actually an easy one because I own this game, and it's one that we've almost put on the table on our game night, but we just haven't gotten around to yet. In terms of the game itself, it just looks like a lot of fun. It's a pretty standard midweight worker placement game, but for those who have listened to the podcast before, I love games with a good theme. And this one has got one of the coolest themes I've seen. The whole theory behind this game is that the space race in the 1960s, 70s, that was all a hoax. And that really what was happening was that somebody had found a wormhole to another galaxy, and all the stuff about going to the moon was just to keep people's attention away. And so it's kind of a Cold War sort of battle to colonize a planet far, 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 far away from us. And it's got a lot of that kind of feel to it, that mid-century, 20th century Cold War kind of vibe. And so I just thought that seemed incredibly cool. But the reason I haven't played it yet, even though I've owned it, is that this is one that I had backed on Kickstarter, and it came in, God, what was it, March, April? It was somewhere in there, early part of the year, right about the time that COVID was getting big. And all of a sudden we weren't able to play board games anymore. So I had this thing sitting in my closet for months, just looking at it, playing with the pieces and feeling them and thinking about, man, I just want to get this thing on the table. And then my family and I hit the road and got distracted by other things. And this has been sitting in a storage unit in, God, I don't even know where. I think Washington State right now. I really want to get this one on the table on game night virtually. I also want to get it on the table in a hard copy when we actually are able to start meeting again. So, but like I said, kind of an easy one because I've already got it, but I'm really looking forward to this one.
I'm excited, Chris. And since it's been brought up as a possible pick for game night for the last 2 weeks, I think this one will be happening pretty soon, I would guess. But I'm excited because it was another Euro that you picked, which is unusual for you. I love Euros. You never want to play them. And this is 2 weeks in a row. We played Tunguru last week and then Godspeed as well. Both look like very fun, nice midweight Euros that are right up my alley. So I'm glad you're excited about it. I'm looking forward to playing it with you.
You've taught me the error of my ways.
All right, Jen, let's jump in with what's your number 5?
My number 5. So this one was the hardest one to pick because I had to think about it. But I went with Rajas of the Ganges, the game, the one that we didn't play. So on a podcast several weeks ago, we recorded the Rajas of the Ganges, the dice game, which we just decided to call Rajas, the dice Charmers. There we go. We just decided to call it Raja's Dice because the name was too lengthy for us apparently to spit out on the podcast. But I'd really like to see the full version. We went online after we played Dice Charmers, and the board is beautiful. The mechanics, like, the route building, it's a little bit less familiar than me. They aren't in my wheelhouse, I don't think. But I like to challenge myself and to dive into a little bit more meatier version of a game that we really ended up enjoying. I mean, we played it that night. We were all really surprised about the Dice Charmers being that exciting and enjoyable. We thank Steve profusely. Tim and I made Danielle play that weekend. She enjoyed it as well. And the theme was just really working. And I mean, again, the board is beautiful. I think it'd be a lot of fun to play the meatier version.
I think you really like this one, Jen. This one is by Inca and Marcus Brand. They made the dice version as well. And this is a really fun game. It's very colorful. I think this is going to be a great fit for you. So I'm excited to get this one to the table as well. All right, great. So I'll jump in with my number 5. And my number 5 is a game called Res Arcana by Thomas Lehmann. Res Arcana is a fairly small box game from what I understand. I have never held it in my hands, but it's a smaller game. But it seems like a pretty simple head-to-head little engine building game. It's got a fantasy theme to it, but it seems like it's got beautiful artwork and components. And the game is kind of unique in that basically you start the game with 8 cards. During the course of the game, you can play those cards for resources and they do different things. And so every game is going to be, you're going to start with a different 8 cards to play with. That's all you're going to get. And then you're going to play those cards and they may give you resources when you use them. But there's a little resource management, little engine building game. It looks like a blast. The main reason why I have not had a chance to play this, it's been out for a couple of years and it looks great to me, is that it seems that it's really a 2-player game. If I understand right, I think you can play it with more players, but it's really meant to be like a head-to-head 2-player game. I don't think my wife would play this a lot. I'm not in a situation where I've got 2 people that I think would really be into this game. And I feel like it's a game where if I got to know it really well and played it well, and then started to just like introduce some of my other more casual gaming friends into it, it's probably just not one that they're going to get into right away. So unless you had a couple people that were going to play it over and over again, I think that's where the real potential is there. So that's the main reason why it hasn't happened. It's player count and just, the ability to get it with the right group. But I'm really excited to play it. I guess there was an expansion that added to it as well. It just looks like a blast. So one of these days I'm hoping to get at the table, but that is my number 5. All right. So Adam, let's jump in with your number 5. What do you have for us?
My number 5, I feel like there's going to be crossover here with potentially Chris, because we've talked about this game before. Fossilis. Designer is David Alberto Diaz, and that's by Kids Table Board Games. And it's this beautiful looking game. You're competing archaeologists or paleontologists. You're on a dig site, digging through rock and clay and sand, trying to find these bones and construct these dinosaurs out of the fossils that you find. There's these little tweezers that they give you, and you're digging down in this little bin, and you pull out a little bone, you put on your card. And once you get enough bones, you trade it in for a completed dinosaur fossil, and you gather all the points, and you win. And you become the most illustrious paleontologist the world has ever known. So this game looks great. The art's fantastic. The production, I have it sitting here. I've mingled with the parts. It's beautiful, and I can't wait to actually read the rules and get it played.
I was just going to say, I've just started to see some reviews come in for this one, and the couple people that I've seen reviewed it really loved it. So I'm excited. It looks cool. It looks cool. What do you have to say, Chris?
I was going to say the only reason that this game is not on my list is that I knew Adam was going to do it. Otherwise, it would have been. It would have been up here.
You're like always 2 moves ahead of me, Chris. It's
no.
frustrating.
That might be a little bit of a cheat anyway, because that was on your top 5 incoming Kickstarters list that you had. That was on your list too, wasn't it, Adam? Or was that just on Chris's?
That was just outside of my Kickstarter.
Okay, all right. Well, then never mind. Yeah. Not a cheat at all.
It was on mine and just outside of his. So.
No cheating here. No cheating here.
We don't want to be too predictable.
All right, right on. All right, Chris. Well, let's get to your number 4.
Oh, goodness. My number 4 is actually one that I did not even know existed until just a couple days ago when it was announced. I don't know if this is something that was announced more broadly that I just hadn't seen, but it's Cthulhu Wars Duel, designed by Sandy Peterson, artists Gray Herb, Richard Long, and Damian Mamelidi, and published by Peterson Games. And it bills itself as a lighter weight version of Cthulhu Wars, which is one of my favorite games. It's one of the games that I've really loved playing with our group. And it's one of those ones where it's just a full-on slugfest. I love that about this game. There's so much player interaction. It's exciting. It's fun. It's cool. It's got a great theme. This is the lightweight version. Frankly, I don't know exactly what the mechanics are going to be on this, but the way they bill it on their website is that it's a smaller, more portable, more easy to play 20 to 30 minute version of the game. This is a pretty epic game. So I have a feeling this is either going to be one that is super exciting and awesome and a lot of fun to play, or it's just going to be too oversimplified and it's going to lose a lot of the charm and excitement or the depth of the main version. But I really want to get it on the table and I want to try it and see how it goes.
Chris, I just listened to a full review of this game by Rolling Dice and Taking Names just a few days ago because I knew you'd be interested in it. And it sounds like almost exactly like the full game, but a tighter, smaller map. There's only 2 factions to choose from right now, but I'm sure Sandy Peterson will make some expansions for it so you could choose other factions. It's only $29.95 for the game, but the monsters and the acolytes, I think, are just like cardboard shits. There may be a standees. Mm-hmm. So it's obviously lower quality components. But it sounded to me like the mechanics are exactly the same. So this seems like, you and I actually played a lot of 2-player Cthulhu Wars, over the last couple of years. And this seems like it would have been a better fit mechanism-wise for us than the bigger version, just because the map's tighter and it's made for 2 people. So I think you would probably really like it. And you can always substitute in your big, huge minis from, because I think it's the same one. It's like the starting one is Cthulhu and I think the Black Goat or something like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, right on. All right, cool. Sounds good. All right, Jen, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Whistle Stop. So as you remember, we did Whistle Mountain in a podcast last month sometime, I guess it was. And we really, really all universally enjoyed that one. And so Whistle Stop is the game before it, which is loosely tied in some way, shape, or form. I believe that somehow. So Whistle Stop, moving backward, is you're a railroad company and you're making your way across the country and you need to deliver goods. You can either deliver them along the route to these small towns, or you can really wait for the payoff if you make it all the way to the West Coast. So that's the concept of Whistle Stop. And so when we moved into Whistle Mountain, I guess if you really read about it, like somehow we were using the money that we had from that game and we were going to invest it in Whistle Mountain somehow. Anyway, we didn't quite make the connection, but Whistle Stop looked really cute when we were exploring it and talking about it. We were chatting about it that night. It was visually appealing. Those little wooden trains that we took a look at were really adorable. It's comfortable for me. It's tile placement, victory points. I like to default to that feeling in my brain. I wish it was on Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. I want to try this one before we buy it. I think that Tim is going to somehow end up with Whistle Mountain in his collection. So I think it would be neat to have that.
I bet Whistle Stop probably is on Tabletop Simulator, that almost everybody's made mods for on Tabletop Simulator for almost any game that's out at this point, unless a publisher pushes back on it. So I bet we could play it. This was designed by Scott Caputo, who is one of the co-designers on Whistle Mountain. It's funny, it's been mentioned a lot because I've been listening to some other reviews of Whistle Mountain, and a lot of the reviewers are saying either that they really loved Whistle Stop as well, and they thought Whistle Mountain was a nice successor, or that maybe they didn't like Whistle Stop quite as much. But yeah, I'm excited to try it out. That should be a fun one. We'll have to check that one out for sure. All right, well, I'll jump into my number 4. My number 4 is a game called Obsession. The designer is Dan Halligan, and Obsession is based on, so I am actually a big fan of Jane Austen. I've read all of Jane Austen's novels. Pride and Prejudice is my favorite novel of all time. There's something about the era, the intrigue, I don't know, just rich people dealing with their little problems in a world where there were a lot of problems to go around. And this is similar if you think about, so the game is basically, it's a Euro game, and it's set around basically trying to create the best, most successful manor so that you can attract a wealthy bride, is my understanding on it. So it's set right within that Victorian England setting. Think, Gosford Park, think Downton Abbey, right? It's that same type of idea. And the only reason that I haven't picked this up and haven't played it yet is because I know that Chris will never play Obsession. I know that Chris, I would say, let's play a game set in Victorian England about building a manor house, and he would say, I'm going home. So I never picked it up. I don't know. It's supposed to be a fantastic game. The theme really hits with me. I think it'd be really fun. So I really want to try this one. There's an expansion for it. I think it's called Upstairs Downstairs, which is supposed to add in kind of the part of, the servants working downstairs while all the rich people are working upstairs. Just fits right within that whole theme.
Tim, can you say the name again? Because I stopped listening to you at like 3 seconds after you of it.
It's called Obsession.
Well, okay, so this theme is making me puke in my mouth a little bit, but I can see it. Like, I would get my fancy hat and my little, what are those little watches that hang down? The little
your pocket watch,
and my fancy hat, and I would totally have some mint juleps. I don't even know I'm getting my, I'm thinking Kentucky Derby now. Whatever it is, I would totally dress up and play this game with you, and it would be a blast, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this will be one that I'll be pushing for, but since the way that we normally pick games is that I throw out 3 selections and then you guys vote for which one you want, I've never even bothered because I know this would never make it to the top of the list.
Oh my God. Tim Doloff, man of letters. I can't believe that such a game actually exists, but hey,
you guys need some Jane Austen in your lives.
Yeah, every time I've said that, every time you brought one of these games, I'm like, that sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I've actually ended up really liking it, so I tip my hat to you on that.
Right on. Well, I probably have several more on my list that you also will have no interest in playing, but are going to be amazing games when we get to play them. All right, well, that was my number 4. So, Adam, what's your number 4?
So I like sci-fi, clearly. Like all these games I'm looking at now, they're pretty much all sci-fi. And I like Bradbury. I read too, Tim. Just I want to try to, I don't know any authors or very many books or ones that are over 50 pages, but I do read. And a game that I am looking forward to playing, and it's been sitting here on my shelf for 3 years now, is Xia. That's XIA, Legends of a Drift System. And the expansion for that is Embers of a Forsaken Star. And this game is cool. You start in this little level 1 spaceship, and you go on little quests. It's kind of sandbox. You're exploring this little world around the sun, and you're upgrading your spaceship. So you can get level 2 spaceship and level 3 spaceship, and you can add all these different parts based on the kind of missions you want to do in this little solar system. So it just sounds neat. And there's a bunch of dice chucking. You can fight each other, or you can run away. You can pick up and deliver. You can go on secret missions and try to do this and try to do that, or you can go mining in these asteroid fields. So you can do pretty much anything you want, of course, within the realm of the game. And it's just been sitting here. You need at least 3 people to play it. And so I just had this big old box collecting dust, but it looks really neat. That's designed by Cody Miller and published by Far Off Games. Xia, Legends of a Drift System.
You just need to make more friends, Adam. That's all. If you need 3 people to play it.
I keep trying. For some reason, no one wants to be friends with me.
But I've heard about this game for years, and I think I mentioned this to you before, and I'm like, listening to it, it either sounds like a great game or a game that will be the worst play experience of my life. Like, it seems so just luck-based and so random, but could be completely fun. And if I just got into that mindset of just like, I want to go out there and enjoy some stories and have fun with it, and who cares about who wins the game, I think it could be a really fun experience. So I would love to try that sometime.
Agree. I think it's the mindset you have to approach this one. There's going to be dice and luck. If you roll like a 20 on a D20, you get a point automatically. So it's just a lot of craziness, which looks pretty fun to me.
Nice. Chris, I think this sounds like one, from what I've heard, it sounds very thematic. It sounds like one that'd be right up your alley as well. All right, well, let's jump into our number 3. So Chris, what do you have for us? Number 3, we're halfway there.
All right, for number 3, you ready for this one, Tim? Are you really ready for this one?
I'm ready.
You sure you're ready for this one?
I don't know. All right.
Now. My number 3 is Dwellings of Eldervale, designed by Luke Laurie, with a whole slew of artists that I won't read all their names, published by Breaking Games. And man, you showed me that one when you backed it on Kickstarter. And oh my God, it was just beautiful. I mean, it had components like, dropped by angels, and the art looked great. And the combination of mechanics, it's got worker placement, it's got adventuring, it's got combat. I mean, just it looked like this amazing package. The only concern that I have is that if it's one of those games where you pack so much stuff into one game that it ends up beating you down a little bit. I hope it's not, but ever since you introduced us to the idea of it, I want to play that game bad. It looks really good.
I'm going to go ahead and say, Chris, we're not really super familiar with each other, but I can't believe you just fed the beast, right? Like, we have all been sitting here listening about this game, and like Tim's got a little drool going down the corner of his mouth, and you just
there's a tear running down the side of his face.
It's like juggling the parts right now as we're talking about it.
I can tell you, you guys, I've been talking about it like crazy, and I have played a couple of solo games now, and it is not, Chris, your concern about it is not valid. The game is smooth. Mm-hmm. It's a great mix of components, great experience, really fun. In fact, the Dice Tower just did one of their 4-way reviews on it this week. Dice Tower is like the biggest game review brand that exists, and they just gave it their seal of excellence.
Well, besides us, you mean?
Well, I mean, after us, right? Yeah. This is, by the way, the first time, I should mention, the first time that all 4 of us have actually done the podcast together.
This is true.
And not only that, it's the first time that Jen and Chris have even actually talked to each other for the first time. So even though they're both a major part of Board Game Hot Takes, both on the same call for the first time. So this is an epic opportunity to call out.
Historic.
This is a big day. A big day.
Yeah, it is a big day. What people don't know is that I have never met Chris, but I've met his cats. So when I go to Tim and Danielle's house, I get to hang out with Chris's cats. They're staying there because, Chris is on this road trip thing. And, I feel completely connected to him. Like, I didn't actually need to meet him. We didn't need to do this. We're like besties. So
it's like a worker placement thing. I sent my cats over to Phoenix to take care of my social duties out there. Yeah.
To pull out the random Charterstone reference there, you get a point for each one of them that you sent over. Right on. I
also have to say in regards to this game that I'm pretty sure, again, as you said that, Tim was figuring out the logistics in his head of getting us all COVID tested and driving us to like Kansas or whatever, the fastest place for all of us to get, like right now. He's like, so tomorrow, if Chris starts driving and I start driving and Adam's just going to fly. So what does this all mean?
It's funny. I've actually had a busy couple of weeks, and I've been trying to get back together with Jen for some gaming because she does live near me most of the time. And I just texted her and my wife the other day, and I said, so guys, let's make a plan this weekend. Dwellings of Eldervale, right? Like, just get it in your head. We're going to play this together. So, I mean, I'm obviously excited, but I just found out that somebody released a TTS mod for it as well today. This will be my next pick for game night. I'm not even given options. We're going to be playing this one next. So, Chris, we got to come in soon, and I think you're gonna love it. I think you guys are all gonna love it. I think this is a great experience.
Super excited.
Glad that you're excited.
I don't think we have a choice.
I know you're definitely playing it as well. All right, cool. All right, well, Jen, what is your number 3?
Well, my number 3, Adam already referenced costume parties, so this wasn't my 3, but we're gonna spit it out now at this point in time. But my number 3 is Pan Am. I know that y'all did a podcast on it well before I was a guest host and then a permanent host or whatever you want to call me at this point in time. But for those of you who didn't watch that episode, Pan Am, players compete with Pan Am Airways and others to build air travel empire outbid rivals for lucrative landing rights, buy planes with longer range to reach the far corners of the world, and use insider connections to advance your interests. It might have been the only podcast that I actually listened to in full before I hopped on here. But I really liked when you were talking about it, it got me interested enough to take a look. And it's not, again, it's a one that I normally wouldn't play. There's the auctioning and the bidding. It's not a mechanism I'm comfortable with, but it's time to push those boundaries a little bit. But for this one, it's all theme. Tim and Danielle and Adam promised me in-person game night with costume, Pan Am era attire, martinis, etc. So I am all in. This will happen. It's like Dwellings of Eldervale or whatever. It has to happen. This also has to happen. Like, this is a separate podcast. Like, things that if they don't happen, we're no longer friends. Put this one on the list.
What a great one to put on that list too. Let me tell you, the last time that I played this game, I put on like the full experience. We had the cocktails, like actually researched from the actual cocktails served by Pan Am on their planes, music that changed with the decades as the game progresses. You can make a night out of this. It's a party.
That sounds amazing, Chris. I want to come. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, come on, Jen. I think that we now know who needs to host this party that we're all going to be having this amazing game of Pan Am with. And by the way, I've already picked up my flight attendant outfit. The skirt's a little tight, but I think I can make it work.
I like it. It's going to be amazing.
I think that'll look really good on you, Tim. You'll pull it off.
All right. Okay, so that's Jen's number 3. So Adam, what do you?
It's you.
Let's jump into me. So my number three. So we haven't had a crossover game yet, but we now have our first crossover designer, and my pick is Manhattan Project Energy Empire. This is designed by Luke Laurie. Luke Laurie, who was the co-designer on Whistle Mountain and the designer on Dwellings of Eldervale, and I have loved both of those games so much that I've got my eye on them. And I'm really excited. I've heard rave reviews of Manhattan Project Energy Empire. When I was first getting into the hobby about 3 years ago, and I was starting to learn worker placement, which I still love, but I was asking a friend who was into gaming. I was like, show me some other worker placements I should check out. And he sent me a few. He sent me Orleans, which isn't, in my opinion, a worker placement. That's a tangent. Sent me a few others, but one of them he said to check out is the original game Manhattan Project. And I looked at it. It looked like some pretty neat mechanisms, but it's basically set around essentially being the first to be ready for nuclear war. And that is a theme that I have zero interest in. It makes me feel bad just even thinking about heading in that direction. So I pretty much ignored Manhattan Project Energy Empire, even though I'd heard some good reviews about it. But it turns out it's actually not related in theme at all. It's about as related as Whistle Stop and Whistle Mountain from a gameplay mechanism and from a theme perspective. Now that I know that it's not really related to the building up of nuclear arms, I'm much more interested in Luke Laurie's definitely got my attention as a designer. So I'm looking forward to checking this one out. I hope to get a chance to play that one sometime soon.
I've heard really good things about that game, Tim. I've never had the chance to play it, but it's been on my radar for a while as well.
Right on. All right, cool. So Adam, what do you have for number 3?
My number 3 game, I've talked about before, so this is a total cheat, is Canvas. It was on my Kickstarter, most anticipated. And this is a game designed by Jeff Chin and Andrew Nerger, published by Road to Infamy Games. This is a game where you're kind of competing artists and you're building this painting right in front of you. There's these transparent cards and you kind of overlay them on top of each other. At the bottom, there's little icons. So there's an element of a set collection as you're building this beautiful canvas. And you're going for these different ribbons. You collect these ribbons. You get these little artist palettes. The components look amazing. The art looks amazing. It just looks like a beautiful, it looks kind of casual. That could be deceiving. It might be kind of ruthless when you get down to it. But it looks just like a pleasant, a little bit lighter type of game. Not too big of a footprint, but beautiful components. And it just looks like a very lovely time.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to playing that one as well. All right, sounds good. So let's jump into our number 2 as we're getting down to the bottom of the list here. So Chris, what do you have for us?
All right. Number 2 will come as not a new thing to listeners of our podcast. It is Imperium the Contention, designed by Gary Dworetsky, artists, again, a bunch of artists. I won't read the whole list. Published by Contention Games. We actually spoke to Gary a couple months ago, and this is a game that was not on my radar at all, but I was introduced to it by Adam. And then we spoke to Gary, and that really made me kind of dig in and look at it a little bit. And I was absolutely fascinated. In fact, I was a little bummed out that I hadn't backed it on Kickstarter when it was on. Amazing art. I love the idea that you had a game that was a 4X, relatively deep-ish game that was all done with cards. So that looked really nice. And I love the way it looked. He and Adam both convinced me that this is a game really worth trying, and I'm really excited to give it a shot. And I think Adam, you have it coming, right?
I do. It looks like it's getting closer and closer to being shipped. Maybe I think the latest was the end of January. I'll double check on that.
Okay. Do we know if is there a TTS mod on this, or?
I've been keeping my eyes peeled. I haven't seen one yet, but I check every week or so.
Well, hopefully some smart person will do it. It looks really cool. I'm really interested to try this one.
For listeners interested in checking out that interview with Gary Dworetzky, that was in our Tapestry episode, which was episode 10. So feel free to go back, take a listen to that, see if it's something that's interesting to you. All right, great. Thanks, Chris. So, Jen, what do you have for number 2?
My number 2 is Pandemic. I know that we don't play a lot of cooperative games, but we played one about a month ago called Forbidden Desert, and I really liked it. I would like to explore a little more of these cooperative games because I think it would really engage my kids. I think it would bring them into gaming in a really positive manner. In Pandemic, and again, it's a much older game. In Pandemic, several diseases have broken out simultaneously all over the world. The players are disease-fighting specialists whose mission it is to treat disease hotspots while researching cures for each of 4 plagues before they get out of hand. And so, everyone gets their own role, and then they have to work together to make it all go away. And I can't, imagine what in this world that would be the equivalent of right now.
And so close to home, yeah.
Very topical.
Funny. We had talked about it, I don't know, a couple months back, and maybe I just wasn't ready for it yet. We're in a much darker place. But I feel like right now it sounds like a lot of fun, and the reviews on it are really great. They call it fast acting and fun and light. I don't know if Pandemic is light, but apparently in some way, shape, or form it is. Again, we've done Forbidden Desert. I borrowed it from my friend Linnea. Hey, Linnea, hopefully you are listening. And P.S., I'm never giving you that game back. Thanks for the gift and not the lend. Again, it really engaged my older 2 kids. I actually got Tim to play it, and he had a smile on his face for the majority of the time. When I went to go look at it online, because Santa Claus was thinking about bringing it this year, Will Wheaton was on the ad on Target.com. So, if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is. And then it's just theme. It's Barkin 2020, pandemic in a pandemic. It's meta, my friend. Let's just make this happen.
And let me just say for the record, what the hell? Will Wheaton, is he into everything? He's into brewing, he's into board games, apparently. He's into curling, as I understand it. True Renaissance man.
I'm fascinated by your knowledge about Will Wheaton.
I don't even know why I know this.
Well, hi, Will. We didn't really mean to bring you into this, but if you ever want to play Pandemic with me, I'm open to it, as I'm sure these guys are too. So awesome.
Hashtag, hey, Will.
Yeah, or teach me how to curl. I want to learn how to curl. That looks awesome.
Hey, so Jen, interestingly, Pandemic was designed by Matt Leacock, who also designed Forbidden Desert. He's kind of the godfather of cooperative games. Pandemic was huge. One interesting thing you might want to know, I used to have Pandemic. It's a very fun cooperative game. The cooperative is not usually my thing, but Legacy is my thing. And I have Pandemic Legacy Season 1 at my house. I got my wife to play about 3 games of it, and then this pandemic happened, and she said, I have zero interest in playing that. So I'm sitting here waiting to continue the campaign, and I've been thinking about bringing it up to you. So we can play Pandemic Legacy Season 1, which is the prime optimal experience to play Pandemic. So you get the opportunity to jump in and join my campaign, and it will be awesome. And I bet you could talk Danielle into playing with us too.
I bet I can. I have skills like that. I haven't figured out why, but somehow they work. So
right on. All right. Pandemic. That is a classic. All right. So my number 2 is Concordia by Matt Gertz. Concordia is a true trading in the Mediterranean game. That's exactly where it's set and what it's all about. And it is the driest of dry Euro themes. It is a plain beige board with plain beige cards and crappy artwork and white bordered classic cards, and none of you will ever play it with me, which is why it's still on my wanting to play list. Oh, Adam's raising his hand; he'll play it with me. But Concordia looks pretty fun. It's kind of a map, and so you got to move around the map and like trade with people and make alliances and build buildings. But the way you do it is you've got a hand of cards. I think everybody starts with the same hand of cards, and each card does something different. And so to play it, you would play a card, and that goes into your discard pile. And then one of the cards in your hand, you discard it, and that lets you pick up your whole hand again. So you have to waste an action to do that. You don't want to do it too often, but sometimes you just need one of those actions back to do it again. And it just looks like a really fun system. And then there's a way to kind of, I'll say deck build, but it's more about hand building. So like you can buy other cards with more powerful actions that you can add to your hand. And just the whole concept, what you're trying to do, the mechanisms, it looks like a blast to me. A lot of people have raved about it. It's supposed to be a great game, and hopefully I can get it to the table one of these days.
So Concordia Agricola Verna has always just been a turnoff of a game to me. That's kind of the classic Concordia Agricola and Caverna. They're all highly touted. They've been around, and they just look so ugly and disappointing. But Concordia has just gotten such rave reviews, and they've lasted. People still rave about these games despite their ugliness and despite their blandness. So that must say a lot about how good the game actually is. So I've been really wanting to play, especially Concordia, just to get to understand my board gaming history and see what it's all about. But I'd be very interested to play Concordia, Tim.
Nice, right on. Yeah. So you've never played Agricola. Have you played any of Uwe Rosenberg's games?
Just Patchwork, but I really want to try Feast for Odin too.
Yeah.
I put it on my list, but Feast looks awesome.
Yeah, so I was introduced to Agricola pretty early in my gaming life, and I had a fun time with this very tight game. But to me, it feels very redundant. And I know there are hardcore Agricola players that are going to be like, no, I could play this game 200 times and it's fine. But to me, it felt like you kind of had to build the same routes every game, and just not that exciting to me. I did like Patchwork, but I did recently get to try A Feast for Odin. I bought it and own it, and it is now one of my favorite games of all time. And now I want to play more Uwe Rosenberg stuff. So Caverna is on my list of things to play as well. And yeah, I mean, they seem bland, they seem boring, they're a little outdated. Maybe they're just great mechanisms that are worth coming back to. So, all right, cool. So Adam, let's jump down to your number 2. What do you got?
My number 2 is Imperium: The Contention. So just to follow up with what Chris said, the game looks amazing. The art looks amazing. Talking to Gary was cool. It made me even more excited to play it. And the latest update was that it's on the boats from Asia, and it started fulfilling in Asia already. So it should be here however long it takes a boat to get over here, and then for shipping to get organized. I don't know how that whole logistical process works. Probably make a board game out of that. There probably are board games of that. Anyway, I'm looking forward to Imperium: The Contention.
All right, first crossover of the night. Let's see if we have any more coming into our number 1s. So, Chris, what do you have? Your big number 1.
I'm pretty confident there's no crossover here. So let me wax poetic for a moment here, or philosophical. We're in a pandemic, people, and that sucks. And one of the things that has, there's not a lot of things that I've seen about this, and I'm like, man, I really miss, because there's in a lot of ways, the pandemic gives you an opportunity to get closer to family and kind of really sort of do some soul searching. But the thing that has really brought home to me is how much I miss Disneyland. And we've watched a lot of Disney movies, and that has intensified the fact that I miss Disneyland. That, and the combination of the fact that there's more family time. And I'm thinking, what can I play with my family? I was thinking Disney games, and 2 of them came to mind. The first one, which is not the one that made my number 1, was Disney's Shadowed Kingdom, which I believe was published by Mondo Games, who also make a pretty mean tiki mug. But it was a cooperative card-based game, and I'm just not that into cooperative games, so that one didn't make number 1. But my number 1 ended up being Disney Villainous, which I just thought sounded so adorable. That it's this idea. It's an asymmetric game where you play a Disney villain, and you have your own goals, and you're kind of fighting against the good guys, and you're trying to you're trying to outdo all the other villains. And strangely enough, this is not even a heavily themed game in the sense of, big, minis. I mean, come on, Disney game, you'd think it'd be minis, right? But there's these very stylized kind of characters. But I just saw this and it just looked like some really enjoyable midweight fun that would make me think of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in the middle of, a quiet COVID-laced afternoon. And this is not actually, strangely, this is not even like they don't even list a designer on this game. It's Prospero Hall and it's published by Ravensburger and Wonder Forge. There's not even a name associated with that. So I'm not sure what that says about it, but I have heard a couple of reviews. It sounds like a lot of fun, and it just makes me long for the old days.
So, Chris, Prospero Hall is a design team who is creating some of the hottest and most popular board games right now, including Pan Am as one of them. That's one of their designs.
I knew that sounded familiar.
Yeah, but they've been doing a lot of stuff with kind of lighter family weight. Pan Am is probably kind of at the higher weight. Villainous also, but they're all the like almost every game in Target right now is a Prospero Hall game. It's supposed to be amazing stuff they're putting out, and Villainous looks like a lot of fun. People have been talking about it like crazy. And as much as I love the idea of Disneyland and taking my daughter there again, I still think that Jane Austen Land would be a better experience.
Wait, did I just throw up in my own mouth? Or was that Adam?
It happened again, second time. So Chris, I've played Villainous a few times.
How was it?
It's not bad, man. So you nailed it. You're playing as a villain. You could send other villains, the heroes from the movies. You can send those heroes to attack that villain and kind of disrupt their whole flow. Each villain has a goal they're trying to get to, and it's asymmetric and everything. The art is exactly Disney art. So if you like those movies, you can play that villain. And there's a handful of expansions now too. So almost any Disney villain you can think of has their own deck of cards that you can go out and try to, ruin the world.
Nice.
Adam, what is the age range?
Oh gosh, it does get a little complex. I'd say probably about 10 or 11. It'd be.
Yeah, BGG says 10 and up.
Yeah, that'd be safe.
Because I actually read about it today, ironically. And so I think it's funny that you've played it, you brought it up, and I read about it today. So I feel like this is a sign at some point in time.
It's cool. It's a fun game. Not bad at all. Yep.
Well, Santa, if you're listening, put this sucker under my tree.
All right. Sounds good.
Damn.
Villainous for Chris is number one. All right, Jen, what do you have? What's your number one game that you're anticipating playing?
Well, guys, I am so excited about this game that I am so excited about playing. Sight Unseen Desire. I know very little except that it's by the gaming geniuses that brought us the best game known to anyone in the whole world ever, your favorite and mine, Castles of Burgundy. That being said, it's Castles of Tuscany. So I am excited. The description, the beautiful Tuscany region in the 15th century is the home of the Italian Renaissance. As influential princes, the players make creative decisions to build the region into a flourishing domain. By supporting towns, villages, and monasteries, or by extracting marble and delivering goods, players see their lands grow, earning them victory points. Each round, players use cards to place useful tiles to expand the regions and gain new opportunities. And you win if you have the most points. So sounds familiar, right? What I want to know in the end, if we now have Castles of Burgundy and Castles of Tuscany, do they make requests? So I would like Castles of Chavez Ravine. And instead of every shade of green or brown, I would like every shade of blue. And then I would play it. Or maybe Castles of North Shore, Hawaii. I mean, and I'm really not picky. I'll take Castles of Buckeye, Arizona. I would probably play it if it was a similar game design. I mean, it has hexagons, it has tile placement. The colors in this one, it looks a little brighter. The artwork, again, looks familiar and probably too small for my eyes, but I'm really guessing that the sucker, it's going to be like a warm hug.
Castles of Scottsdale.
Yeah, so Castles of Tuscany is by the same designer, Stefan Feld of Castle of Burgundy. It seems like there's some shared DNA. I've read a lot about it and watched some playthroughs. It seems a bit lighter than Castles of Burgundy, but I actually do think you're really going to like this one, Jen, and I would really like to try it. So I think this is definitely one that we'll have to get to the table sometime soon.
Is You said Chavez Ravine. Is there like a world championship team that plays there?
There is a world championship team that plays there. So they are known as the Boys in Blue, known as the Many Shades of Blue if it was Castles of Chavez Ravine.
Huh.
The Dodgers. Oh, it's the Dodgers.
Los Angeles. I've heard of that place. And by the way, when Jen started out, she said something about desire on sight unseen or something like that. I'm like, that's the weirdest name I ever heard for a game. So I'm like Googling that. And I'm like, Tim would probably love that. I bet it's got Jane Austen in it.
It does. It has Mookie Betts and Jane Austen in it. So.
All right, sounds good. Jen,
hold on. Tim has no idea who Mookie Betts is, so we probably just need to move on.
I do. You've talked about him before. I wouldn't have if you hadn't talked about him, but I do. And also, do you know who Mr. Darcy is? No? Okay, then we're on even ground here. Jane Austen character.
There's a movie with a guy. There was a movie and there was a guy and he used to be popular and I think he was in this other movie.
No, unrelated.
Okay.
All right. So I don't have a crossover of game, but I do have a designer crossover again, and that is Stefan Feld. So my number one most anticipated game is one of Stefan Feld's great hits, Trajan. Trajan is a little bit heavier game than Castles of Burgundy, but supposed to be fantastic. It uses a little rondel that apparently you can upgrade, so your action selection is based on which characters you can move into it. I guess more like Mancala than a rondel. Seems fascinating, though. I can't wait to play it. And honestly, about a month ago, I went to a local game store to try to pick it up, and every local game store I went to was closed that day, so I didn't pick it up, and I ended up picking up Parks at Target instead. And I had a lot of fun with Parks, but I still am dying to pick up Trajan, and it's going to happen soon. So that's my number one most anticipated game, a kind of heavy, beefy Euro about building up fame in ancient Rome. So, another really awesome theme that you guys, I'm sure, will completely enjoy. All right, so let's jump into Adam's number one game, most anticipated game at this time.
At this time, it's kind of a cop-out. It's kind of hot right now. It's a relatively new release, so it's getting a lot of press. Dune Imperium. It's by Paul Dennen and Dire Wolf Games. So Paul Dennen also did Clank, I believe. I don't know if he did all the expansions, Acquisitions Incorporated, and Clank in Space. I presume he did all those. But this game's been getting high praise. And I love, again, going back to sci-fi. I think 3 out of my 5 or 4, if you look hard, sci-fi related. It's based on Frank Herbert's intellectual property, Dune, the Dune Galaxy. It's basically the artwork is the cards are cuts from the new movie that hasn't yet released. Anyway, this game is like a worker placement and a deck builder, and there's a little battle element. There's lots of interaction. You're kind of cat and mousing to see who's going to have the most troops in this little battle area to try to win the conflict prize. And the game builds on itself as it goes on, and the tension. So I played a solo game today. So I don't know. I'm sort of crossing all kinds of lines with, does this count? Have I really played? But I played the solo game today, and that was smooth, and there was tension there. And I can't wait to play it with you guys and be, kind of ruckusy, kind of Euro elements that Tim might like, but kind of some ruckusy stuff and some theme that Chris might like too. And it seems like a pretty fun game for our group.
Yeah, right on, man. I'm looking forward to it as well. It looks like a blast. I'm glad that your first glimpse at it looks like a lot of fun. So we'll definitely have to bust this one out as soon as we can get together. All right. Well, sounds good. I think that is everybody's top 5 list of most anticipated games, that the games that we're hoping Santa puts in our stocking, or at least gives us the chance to play this year. That'll wrap us up today. This is our last recording before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everyone who listens to it a few days after it releases. And I hope you all have an awesome holiday. Tell us what you thought of our discussion today. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, happy holidays.
Ho, ho, ho.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks for having me.